All right, folks, welcome back. It is day 231. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Minasan, yokoso. Welcome, welcome. I kind of had applesauce going down my trachea for a moment there. Nihongo no benkyou. Yeah, benkyou. Oh, benkyou. Yo. Interesting. How does a show work? How does show work? Is that like oh wait. Is that like show as in like show? Like let's go? Let's is that the show of suru? Uh, Oh. Yeah, it is. Wait. Right? Yeah, the casual form. Yeah. The let's of show. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah, let's study some Japanese. Actually, before we start, we can't yap too long today because yesterday, too ham, too much yap. Like, I looked at the time, it was 4.5 hours of yap. Okay. But before then, though, I wanted to ask Sub-Zero if he actually worked on his Atari game. When I asked him, "Oh, how's the Atari game going?" His first response is, "I'm dogging this can of mackerel." That's his first remark. Like, just think about it. Think about the process. He's particularly proud of dogging his can of mackerel. I dig it though. I'm kidding. All right, all right. We gotta do our recall beforehand. Let's see. Uh, I'll let you stoop on that while I figure out if I remember any of this stuff. Relationships. You haven't worked on it today? Was working on another course that you have a project in? Oh, okay. I see. Fair enough. Do I remember this stuff? I feel like I slacked off so hard. I did remember the 3 new things we needed to add. Relations. Okay. My hand is seasoned. Cannot compute. Oh, okay, I got it. Nipa. Yume. I can see myself like when I'm like 70 or 80, when I'm like focusing really, really hard. I swear my like right eye starts twitching. I get can't retrieve data. Okay. All right. Yume. There are 2 adjectives. Oh no, we have more. Dokshi. Dokshin. Download more RAM. That's what I say. Download more RAM. Bitcoin. Bitcoin. Recon. Yes, please. I could use the extra RAM too. I know, right? If anyone figures out how to download more RAM, like to my brain, please, please and thank you. Ugh. I was triggered by this stroke. Okay. Recon. Can't. Okay, got it. If you guys spell smoke, it's me. You know. It's a new feature on Twitch when someone's brain. Oh, hello there, Reese. Riaz. If someone smells smoke, it's a new feature. It's when my gears grind and smoke is coming out of my head. So, you're welcome. Wakaremashita. Or wakareru. Wakareru. Alright. Whoops. She knew. I see the smoke coming out of your ears now. I know, right? Alright. Early days. Early days. New. Nakunaru. Nakunaru. Our edition. Yesterday it was Yobu. Yobu. I don't know where to put it. That's as good as place. The predicate. Wakai. Wakai. Akachan. Flexing that brain muscle. You gotta flex it. Just squeeze, you know, just think really hard. Just imagine your brain flexing. Akachan. Akachan. Oh, this is one that we added yesterday too. Otona. No, onato. No. Oh, oh no. Oh no! My brain is fried already. Kidding, kidding. I think it's otona. Okay, okay. Umareru. Not yet. Not yet. Hi hen. Hi hen. Okay, so we think about akachan, right? Akachan umareru. Okay. Otoko. Otoko, and this is what we added yesterday too. Otoko for Dansei. Dansei. Onna. No hito. Kata. 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 Why did I write it like tilted? It's because I'm tilted. Oze. Oze. Noko. Otonoko. Otoko noko. Otoko noko. Onna noko. Hmm. Whoops. Kareshi. Hanojo. Um. Single. We can make a note here for suru. Suru. Yeah, that's good. Unit 55. The heck was he? Oh, common items. Okay. Oh my gosh, that first joke was so long. Kabam. Nimotsu. Uh. Yeah. Yeah. I think. Um. Taifu. Hmm. Nope. 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 Who did? Dang you. Once you screw up. When I screw up the first stroke of like a radical, I just like give up on the rest. I like rush the rest, like yeah, dissatisfying. Okay, okay. You did okay. Um, wait, wait. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Why am I drawing a blank on this one? Oh no. Oh no. Corrupted sector. Corrupted sector. All right, we gotta defrag, man. No, I got it. Oka. Oka. Iroiro. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, wait. I've got a few things. Hold up. Uh, I forgot. Mina. Or Mina. That's fine. We got it though. Okay. Colin reminded me of that. Check this slash f slash r forward slash f forward slash r. Yeah, check this for sure. Oh, the. Taisetsu. Motsu. Dasu. Dasu. Ireru. 入れる。あげる。Oops. もらう。Oops. Why did I wrote ru? もらう。もらう。Hmm. Those are our pairs. Hmm. Um. 違う。同じ。軽い。Son of a bee sting. 重い。I think that's fine. We're good. Double check. 丈夫。Forgot 丈夫。It's over. It's time to retire. 丈夫。Heckin' 丈夫。Alright. Alright. We're fine. Check disc.
まず左に曲がります。
まず。左 Wait. 左に。What? 曲がります。
まず左に曲がります。左に曲がります。
Turn. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about 曲がり。曲がる。Yay. Oh, that's because I don't have the kanji. Okay. Yeah. 曲がる man. Oh.
脂っこい食べ物はあまり食べません。1ヶ月に1回ぐらい食べます。野菜と果物が大好きです。
Okay. I like healthy foods.
脂っこい食べ物はあまり食べません。1ヶ月に1回ぐらい食べます。野菜と果物が大好きです。
Yay. Yeah. はい。What does that mean? Oh, wait. Awful? Yeah, but oh, okay, I got it. Alright. I at least I think I got it. Alright. Irikuchi. What the
口
irikuchi? Okay. Um uh we have irikuchi. Right. 入り口の近く。近く uses in sorry 近く。入り口の近くに階段 we have 階段があります。Okay. その階段の上がります。上がる。The yai was me quoting you with the sound you were making. Oh, a yai. Oh, yeah. Got it. And I put yabai because it sounds like you're almost at that. Oh, yeah. True. It's kind of like when you you know, like a lot of adjectives, right? Gets the e gets dropped. Like uma. I hear that so often because I watch so many people eat food. So you hear uma all the time. Ah. Niriguchi.
にを
Okay. Pizza.
ピザ
Pizza. I keep saying pizza like pizza. Pizza. Pizza wa pizza wa zenzen. 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 Right. Zenzen 食べません。脂っこい。I don't think we have 脂。No. 脂っこい。脂っこいものはちょっと。脂っこいものはちょっと。Oily foods. おいしい。Well, we technically have oishi, but I don't think used too often. Right. Well, I honestly I have seen people use it. Oops. Oh, I think I still need the she. What else we have? おいしい。おいしい。カップケーキ。カップケーキが焼きたいです。Technically we don't have yaku. However, wait. Yes, yaku. But I do know yaku. Plus oven. I think it looks like an oven, but it's not really an oven. I don't think it's an oven. Um, yeah, Yaku. Wait. What? Oh yeah, yeah, big. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how that works. Chikaku, we already went over. Chikaku no shima. Shima. Chikaku no shima o mawarimashita.
島
I don't know if it's the same, but let's go look. Yeah, it's the same. This one was in Shashinko. Actually, the last couple were from Shashinko. This was in the context of spin, but it also means to go around. Mawaru. Which I like to take the reason why this is so characteristically memorable is because of a show called School Rumble. The anime specifically, because it has to do with the ending theme. Oh, actually, it might be. I forgot if it's the ending or the opening. I think it's the ending theme. It's round and round. It's called round and round. Right, kuru, like kuru mawaru. that was like the line, and it's like spinning round and round or going round and round, and I can't unhear it. Kyonen. We have Kyonen now too. Kyonen. Whoops. I don't want to talk about it. Kyonen. Kyonen. Imoto. Imoto. Uh-oh. Ah. No. Yeah. Not Jie. Mei. Alright, Imoto. Imoto ni? Imoto. Imoto something. Nani? Ningyo agemashita ni. Ningyo. No ningyo. Although I do know the nin. This is probably this nin, right? Person nin. Gyo something else. Don't have it yet. Christmas wa Oko-san ni donna presento o agemasu ka?
クリスマス
It's too early for that. Does Duolingo have stories for Japanese? They do. And it is so far away. It is so far away. The first Japanese story is in section 3, unit 79. I think I'm on unit 56 right now, or something like that. So if it takes 3 days per unit, I still have like 2 months, roughly 2 months before we hit the story, the first story, and then it's every unit. And then it stops, actually. It doesn't continue with stories. It stops after a while. I don't know section. I can't look at section 4 without skipping, so I don't know what's in section 4. That's crazy. Spanish has stories almost immediately. Yeah, so they retroactively add stories. So it goes backwards. So if I spent like eternity getting to section 4 or getting there, I imagine the stories would be added earlier and earlier. They go from like the features are like they go backwards, because you know the feedback is probably, or yeah. I'm looking forward to Spanish stories though. Yeah, like Chinese don't have stories at all, right? Because it's a later course. Yeah, mileage may vary, so we make up the stories ourselves. I am very genuinely curious about what the stories are going to be about. Oko-san cousin, no, kids, sorry, Oko-san. Keep forgetting. Oko-san is Ko. Oko-san. Mazu 何に上がります。2回。Anything here? No. We went over Yaku. Cookie no.
クリスマス
クリスマス
クッキ
クッキーが焼きonce いや焼きたいです。
ー焼きたいです。
去年何をあげましたか？
Way over 去年。去年何をあげましたか？Oh. Last year, I hate English. Okay. I'm done. I'm okay. That hurt me a little bit. I think I got kicked by Duolingo just now. Dare. So dare ni present o agemashita ka? Or agemasu ka? Oh, who did you? Yeah. Agemasu. Yeah. Sorry. I was in the process of writing dare. So we have dare. 日本語を勉強するだからよ。Listen. Like in English. What are you studying at the moment? Wait, are you referring to yourself or what are you? Oh, you hate English too. Oh, sorry, I missed the first I missed the first statement. Yeah, that makes sense. Likewise, heck in English.
誰
誰にプレゼントをあげますか？ Where's put it?
プレゼント
Presento.
あげまか
Yeah, they go together. I need to read them. I need to read statements
そ
together.
して左に曲がります。
Soshite. No, no, soshite. Not sure if soshite even has a preferable kanji. Yeah. Soshite, hidari ni magarimasu. Okay. Hidari ni. Aburakoi. Aburakoi wa ski desu ka? Ski? Yes? Oh, they're all lumped together.
油は好きか
Wait. Oh, I've got food. I've got food.
いろいろな街を回りました。
Iroiro. Oh, we have Iroiro now too. Oh, there are a lot of things we have now. We're going through Iroiro. Iroiro na machi. That one, I'm not sure. It seems like something I would. Oh no, it's not what I would have. Although in Shashinko, that's why it is familiar. Machia. Machia. Machia is a thing. 街を回りました。回る。Yeah, we already went over 回る. You made a mistake in your Japanese anyways. It should have been だから。Yeah, だから日本語をとしている。Oh, している. Oh, because you're currently studying. Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because you're currently studying. I add the word currently as a English reminder of the present progressive. Currently. いろいろな街を回りました。回りました。We Son of why did I do talk about it? I don't want to talk about it. I should have reminded myself what I was talking about. Whenever I think about traveling, I think about resorts and not towns. Oh,
去年何をあげましたか
that's my fault. That's my fault. I wasn't reading the prompt anymore. Son of a diddly. That hurt. That hurt. My attention span is not great today. 去年何をあげましたか? I swear you years.
脂っこい
脂っこい食べ物は好きですか?
は好きか
いろいろな街を回りました。
It's one of those days, I tell you. It's one of those days.
福岡に港があります。
福岡に Minato. I think we have yet.
福岡
Fukuoka. Fukuoka.
港
Fukuoka Minato
に
ni あります?
あります
No, wait.
にが
Kidding. Fukuoka ni Minato ga arimasu. That works.
福岡に港があります
There's a port in Fukuoka.
シャワーの後携帯は見ません8時からベッドで小説を読みますそして10時頃寝ます
What they do at night? Yeah. They're a shower and they go to bed at 10.
ビタミンは飲みません
Vitamin.
ビタミン
Vitamin
Wa.
wa nomimasen.
飲みません
I mean, I'm gonna be real here. This is kind of outdated. As much as I love to be like a proponent of, oh, if you take your vitamins, you get some extra boost. But generally speaking, boy, is this a deep cut into the billion-dollar industry that is nutritional supplements. Boy. I won't say much more. I hope all of you are eating nice food, you know, enjoying eating food and stuff, because if you enjoy eating food and you're having access to food, like great access to food, this stuff is like old hat. Pretty old hat, unless you're deficient, which is very specific use cases, right? There are very specific use cases for vitamine. Maybe like iron, zinc, something very situational, and also part of someone's biology, like age.
ビタミンは飲みません
You strive for a well-balanced diet. That's good to hear. Good. Hopefully well-balanced and delicious and enjoyable. I feel kiddos these days feel like well-balanced diets scream disgusting and grindy and stuff. It's like, nah. It would be I think the world would be such a phenomenally less toxic and negative place if food culture was able to resonate with most people, and then accessibility, right? Accessibility of food, obviously. It's practically a utopian dream at this point. But boy howdy, the difference between someone who's enjoying their meals, eating well, compared to someone who isn't, you know. Yeah, it is possible for it to be both. And experimenting and being excited to figure out how to strive for both is fantastic. I am very I think I definitely want to, you know, throw my hats off to the content creators that are very influential and are doing just that, right? Trying to bridge the accessibility problems with food and whatnot. I know there's still like we still have to contend, like as a whole there's still starvation, right, poverty and whatnot. However, with that said, step in a direction, right? Accessibility and foods. Supplements do not negotiate either of those deficiencies. So cool. Imagine like, it's just a little teeny bit extra commentary, like rhetoric. Imagine someone saying that they prefer to buy a $10 bucket supplement as opposed to using that $10 to meal prep 3 meals, right? That kind of thing really adds up after a while. And I know there's time involved and conveniences. It's tough. It's tough. One thing to argue about is, though, it's great that other people are making it accessible, where yeah, that protein shake might save you a minute, But what is the what is the overall gain, right? Gain or compromise? Gotta enjoy it. Part of life. Also, wait. 遅くまで late. 遅くまで I don't think I have another way to write that. 遅くまで遅くまで携帯 Nope. Not yet. 携帯で音楽。やっぱ音楽。音楽。Wait. Was there one stroke or two stroke? I feel like there were two strokes. That looks fine. Whoops. Oh yeah, that looks fine. 音楽。
音楽、
聞く Yes. Yeah, in Ongaku. Same unit, actually. Same unit. ここのねはとてもベルはヘルシー Oh my gosh, I can ヘルシーヘルシー instead of what is it? The one that I like is Kento Teki or something. Kenko Teki. No. Yes, Kenko Teki. Herushi. Oh, jeez. Herushi. 食べ物は健康的 is 健太と健康的 we have uh-oh. Was there like two strokes? Yes. That doesn't... Yes, that's okay. Techie. No, that's not techie. It's duh. Whoops. Yes, it's duh. Jikan? I think it's also Jikan. Not Chinese. Okay, Jikan? No. No. Jin? 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 Jin. Jiankang. Yeah, Jiankang. Same thing. It means the same thing. Jiankang. Healthy. And techie is added. I think is totally Japanese thing. For techie. Second, herushi. Sono. I mean, kono. Kono lettuce. No. Kono. Restaurant. Oh. I'm looking at the bowl and all I can think about is lettuce. このレストランの食べ物はヘルシーです。Okay.
食べ物
Nothing here. No, nothing here. Fukuoka. Oh, for a moment there I was... Fukuoka は大きい都市ですね。の都市。Lobster. Okay, of course.
ロブスター
Lobster. Again, lob.
船
No. 船。眠い。
眠い
I feel like this was in Shashinko. Nemui. Nope. No Nemui. Josetsu. Shosetsu. Not Josetsu. Josetsu.
小説
Shosetsu. Mizugi. It's probably Mizu. Mizu and then Gi. Whatever Gi is, the uniform. Mizugi.
水着
I don't have either. Oh, I have Mizu, but I don't have Gi yet. Point card. Point card が欲しいです。Wait. I don't know if... No, there wasn't kanji, right? So, 欲しい。Yes. 欲しい。I think. I might have added an extra stroke. I added an extra stroke. 欲しい。毎日。Hit me up with that 毎日。Dang you! Okay, 毎日。Oops. Okay. 毎日。ロブスターを食べました。
ヘルシーな食べ物が食べたいです。
ヘルシーな食べ物が食べたいです。Okay. Okay.
ビタミン
は飲みません。
福岡の港
Okay. Oops. ポイントカード
ポイント
カード
を
これ use?
使います
使いますか 使えますか？使います。使う。使う。使う。
携帯をたくさん使います。
携帯をたくさん使います。はい。うん。
ペットが2匹いました。
I heard ペット
ペット
ペット something
が
が2匹
2匹
2匹いま
い
した。
ました。
I don't have 匹 yet.
ペットが2匹いました。
ペットが2匹でいました。
サムさんの家にペットがたくさんいました。犬と猫は可愛かったです。魚とカメレオンとうるさい鳥もいました。
えpets, pets and more pets.
塩をください。
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 何は広かったでしょう。広かったでしょう。広い？うん。Negative. No, negative. A place that's roomy. Smoothie. Of course it's smoothie. Kitchen. Oh my gosh. Instead of daidokoro. We might as well write daidokoro. Yeah, daidokoro. Kitchen. Okay.
バナナ
Banana.
眠い。
眠い。海外。
海外
No, but I imagine has some relations with Ryugaku. No, it's not. It didn't. Oh, that makes so much sense. Outside seas. Oh, yeah. Technically, I could form that. Oops. Okay. Fair enough. Got it. Right? Soto and umi. Sorry. Umi. Interesting. Hi, guy.
船、
Une.
リゾート、
Of course. Dude, they just rub it in. Risotto. Ah. 1ヶ月に1回、1回、フライドポテト。フライドポテトを食べます。Okay. That's self-explanatory. Now I'm hungry. Artist. Yeah, artist.
アーティスト、
Artist. That one's notorious. I pause on artist so often. Stage.
ステージ
歴史、
歴史. Technically, we also had 歴史. Rekishi was where I know Rekishi. No. No. We'll get it eventually. Nah, that kind of looks okay. Yeah, that looks okay. And yeah, Rekishi or an Rekishiteki, right? Rekishiteki.
Rekishi.
Rekishi. Stadium.
スタジアム
Stadium.
セータ
ベッドと花で、oh no 間に机机 oops 机棚とベッドと棚の間に机がありました。in between。愛さんのアパートは広かったです。広かったです。広かった。
はいさんのアパート
は
広かった
で。
す。
塩。
自転車
黒い。シャツ。
Sorry.
公園
I thought of something else. When I looked at that, I thought of something else. There were also pets. ペットもいました。
ふわふわのセーターはあそこです。
ふわふわのセーターはあそこです。No. I spent the last hour now going down this rabbit hole of questioning the very fundamentals of what you know. What do you mean, the very fundamentals of what you know? Sub-Zero, are you having a third quarter's life crisis? I mean, a 1 quarter's life crisis. Sorry, I subtracted incorrectly. Are you having a 1 quarter life crisis right now? What's wrong? Is it something you're troubleshooting? The fluffy sweaters are over there. Risotto. I have a problem with risotto. I'm just saying, when you say risotto, I all I hear is risotto. When I hear risotto, I hear risotto. Risotto? I don't know. The American, I don't remember how to risotto. Wait, I can't say it like the American way. Risotto. Oh yeah, risotto. Yeah, risotto. Every time I see risotto, I think of risotto. Sorry. Sorry, I hope you guys can unhear that in the future.
来月
来月 okay. 来月リゾートに行きます。
リゾート
リゾートに行きます。
窓とテレビの間に綺麗な絵がありました。
You got hung up on this very simple part of the project that I shouldn't even be questioning, but it had me stumbled. Listen. Don't get complacent on your fundamentals, Sub-Zero. Coding, you know, coding is another language, right? You're basically learning another language. So what you're telling me is when you start learning Chinese, you're gonna have another quarter life crisis at some point. I understand. Wait, hold up. You can use this as an experience. Okay. Oh, this isn't coding? The basic electronics. Oh no. Oh no. Nah, it's still the same. It still checks out. It still checks out. So what you're saying is you're going to use this as a learning experience to not skimp on fundamentals, and then when you start learning, go back to coding and then learning Chinese, you won't have this fundamental gaps of, you know, complacency. It's okay. It happens to me all the time. I feel like the more skills you learn over your life, the more likely you're going to forget your fundamentals. And I kind of find it humbling. It's a very humbling experience to like revisit fundamentals. Here's a deep cut. I have a deep cut. It's a deep cut joke about being a generalist or someone who has a lot of experience. If you're XP focused person, which I humbly consider myself as an XP focused forward person as opposed to an knowledge focused person. But the deep cut here is, you know, you are experienced, incredibly experienced, right? Experienced when you enjoy, or at least believe, you have to review fundamentals. That's my hot take. So when someone comes up to me and say, oh yeah, you know, I played a lot of Souls games, right? They're all about the same. It's like, this game, that's practically a Souls-like. And my first thought, and then when they play it, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I skipped the tutorials and whatnot. It's like, you haven't played enough, man. At least that's my hot take here. If you play enough of something, if you generalize enough of something, eventually your fundamentals are gonna... Wouldn't say you're enjoying them. I guess it falls under, you've been doing electronics long enough that it's been a while since you revisited basic electronic fundamentals. So that's a natural response, right? It can be very negative. I understand. It can be a negative response, but honestly, I don't want to make it sound like any urgent, but I would say it's a realistic outcome, and finding ways to enjoy that again would probably be, it would go a long way. Because for me, I feel like I have enough skills and exposure and experience that at some point it's going to happen again. You play something and you're like, I can't explain the fundamentals anymore. And I feel that's kind of a thing. It happens to specialists too. However, it's less likely. I feel like it's even less likely to happen to a specialist because largely they have a narrow focus. So when they have a narrow focus, they're this happens in both cases. However, as a specialist, you continue to go up. So you don't necessarily ever get challenged to look back down. Or you don't get like an assignment or something that tests your fundamentals. Because most of the time you're tackling something that's super specialized that it might not ever touch the fundamentals anymore. Yeah, part of it because the past year you have coded most circuits and now you're asked to draw it up the old-fashioned way. Exactly. I should really know this stuff. Really though. Yeah, you definitely should know this stuff. I'm not making an excuse. I don't want you to take that as an excuse for it. Really? My 2 cents is, since you know it's going to happen, right? Okay, maybe it might not happen as often as you think. Eventually, it is likely to happen to, people who actively, constantly learn things. So finding more ways to engage in it and making it sit with you longer, that's kind of a fun challenge, at least in my opinion. Like if I forgot something, like Japanese happens all the time, right? Right now I'm literally doing that. Like, do I remember this? And then I forgot or something like that. My thought is, okay, let's do better this time. Like, how can I get myself to remember this time? Because I'm different now, right? You're different now. You're coming back to this after coding most circuits. So how do you integrate your memory of the stuff you have now, the way you code most circuits? How do you relate that to your old-fashioned way? And that, to me, is how you reinforce going forward. So if you go back to an early experience, you are no longer the same person. You are more experienced, right? You have more XP now. So the things that you've forgotten, like fundamentals, those were coded when you were still learning. So you had less experience when you were then, right? So you can take, in my opinion, find creative ways to take your experience and encode this even better the next time. Then it'll be a longer period of time before you forget it. Then a longer period. And hopefully, you don't have to spend too much time over time. I think that's how what Duolingo really taught me about Japanese, because what they did, they went a really long time and then they start over with kanji and then go really long time. So now I'm getting reminded in these personalized practice and stuff where my gaps are. Although now I'm different. Now I have other kanji, other XP to leverage. And I think it's true for like science, other disciplines. If you can, if you have XP, you have more memory. And leveraging that into your fundamentals the second time, third time, fourth time around, the fundamentals get carried with your new experience. At least that's, in theory, conceptually, that works. And in practice, I think for myself, it works fairly well. So get creative, Sub-Zero. You should know this, but you're only human. Unless there's something you want to tell me about. Are you secretly a Skynet robot? I don't know. Are you secretly a Skynet robot? I technically don't exist. I'm generative AI, so surprise. I'm kidding. Mado. Mado to. Wait.
窓とテレビの間に綺麗な絵がありました。
窓と窓? Oh, mado. Jeez. Mado. I'm like, what the heck is mado? 窓とテレビの間に綺麗な絵絵 is like 絵 could be, wait, what do you mean could be colon D? I mean D colon. I'll ask the prof next class because I generally don't think I'm gonna get out of this loophole without clarification. I see. So it's gonna be awkward asking such a basic question. Nah, I don't think so. Not to a professor. If a professor thinks it's awkward, that would be unfortunate. Try asking Copilot and you'll clarify answer. Yes, Copilot. Alright. Do you ever get confused when you see a word that you're used to seeing written in kanji, written in hiragana instead? It happens to me all the time. It does. It just happened. Yeah. It not as frequent. Not as frequent. It's increasing in frequency because of now everything is kanji focused. However, the way Duo taught, the way Duo exposed Japanese, this is really strong. Like, it's still really strong. If you give me another 3 months, I would say it will go up. The frequency will go up to the point where like I'm like, Mado, what the heck is Mado? Like, it happens like I'm gonna say it happens like 2% of the time right now. 2% of the time. It's going up though. However, because Duo was almost exclusively hiragana, when I say Mado, most of the time my ears check for it. And when I see it, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's still useful for this, but yeah, it can happen where like I don't know what Mado is anymore. Like, what is this? It took me a while. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then yeah, it does happen though, all the time. And like, what I mean is like, it feels like it's all the time because it hasn't happened before. So it's kind of shocking when it's still very surprising when I forget what it looks like as a read, as a kana read. Copilot is too easy to get gaslit. If I go, but shouldn't it be this way because then it switches up completely and sides with you? That sounds about right. Confirmation bias is very, very strong when it comes to that kind of thing. They allow us to use Copilot for the Atari game actually, but it hasn't been helping at all. Interesting. What is it? Is your university like sponsored by Microsoft or something? What the heck? Copilot? sorry, it's fine. So 窓とテレビの間に綺麗な絵がありました。Okay. ありました。窓。Oh, Kirena. And I think it's gonna happen for the rest of eternity, human being. I don't think this is a circumventable consequence of kanji and hiragana. I don't see myself deliberately doing it either. Like, I'm not gonna. I told myself way back, like, if I wanted to keep hold of like Nomaji to some extent because I can see some fun things to be used, and then like hiragana and the relationship between the read, the hiragana and the kanji. However, I was telling myself, if it happens, it happens. It's going, and the rate it's going to happen. Where like I get uncomfortable with reading hiragana in the middle of a sentence where a kanji character would be. At the moment though, it's still like 95% of the time I read a hirakana thing, I'm like, do I know the kanji of this? And then in personalized practice. So in personalized practice, it still goes back to before unit 35. In the current unit, every current unit, they no longer do this. Or they try very hard not to do, which is to a fault, basically. Basically, they keep the sentence as non-complex or not involving anything that involves reintroducing something that's not written the way you would see it. It's a very fun like switch. I kind of like the personalized practice even more now, because now this is an extra exercise for me. Like I genuinely enjoy doing this now. Personalized practice used to be like it got a little familiar, like super familiar. Now when I get personalized practice, I'm like, hey, what is this kanji? Over and over again. So obviously the downside is my personalized practice is very long and my regular lessons are shorter, because whenever a kanji comes up, it's like I only have to be responsible for the kanji. The other stuff is not new. Occasionally though, they would introduce a lot of new vocabulary, but it's very rare that they introduce new vocabulary anymore. I mean, I already said this before. By the time you get to, conservatively, by the time you get to that unit 36 is when it starts, you have 2,200 terms in Japanese. So if you took out like say 400 of them for like kana terms, as in like terms that are commonly in kana, you still have 1,800, which that's a lot. That's a lot of kanji. And as far as I know, the last time they did a count before any more updates, there had been updates. So I would say if I had to take a note, it's probably going to be around 1,500 kanji. Now, whether they are 1,500 of the 2,000 that most people are referring to, that might not be the case. However, there are 1,500 somewhere in this course. I would say potentially even more, depending on how the updates affected it. Yeah, there are 1,500 kanji. In 2023, there were 1,300 kanji. So I'm adding another 200, expecting that they have added some. Yeah. So that's the total. So if you were like me, like someone who keeps track of all the kanji, you're going to get more than 1,500 by the end. I thought you were talking about the official kanji list. Oh, no. I'm not talking about the official kanji list. I was comparing it to the official kanji list, though. So as far as the official kanji list goes, I know most of these. That's the last time I checked. What I mean is, I know that most of these are in Duo. I don't know these yet. I only have like 400, which might include, it includes all of N5, but no, probably not all of it, because it's more than that. It's what is N4 like 600 total or something, including all of N, like N5 plus N4, something like that.
1ヶ月に3回ハンバーガーを食べます。
Nah, it's just that one course. Haven't been allowed to use it in any. The prof seems very fond of it. His live coding classes is just him asking Copilot to split up some code. That's kind of neat, actually. Not the best teaching method. I know, but it is a demonstration, though. That's pretty cool. It demonstrates that your professor is using tools like topical tools, right? Like the thing I would love to use is once I'm done with fundamentals, right? Or like the Duolingo course is to integrate some sort of LLM, right, into to use it, because tools are made to be used. How you use them is the fun part, at least in my opinion. Oh, N4 is only 300? Oh. And Kanshuro says only 250. Oh, only 250 total for 4. Oh, interesting. Huh. Oh, well, 250 plus the N5 ones. So we have to remember, like, keep in mind, I only know like 400. It's 250 plus the N5, which the N5 is another 200. Oh, it's 250 total? Oh. Oh. Okay. Maybe I should go back through that list. N5 is like 80 and 100. Oh. Man. That tells you how long I've that tells you how long ago that I looked at JLPT stuff. Okay. Maybe I'll go back and look at the JLPT. Yeah, if I have provided that it's not complex sentences, because I have diminished grammar. So I have diminished grammar. When it comes to circumventing diminished grammar, I can earnestly say I would probably have no problems with like 1900 of those terms. And then of those 1900, I can comfortably say maybe 380. I'm subtracting like the 10% that there's a chance. I have an average drop of 10% in terms of kanji recognition. So I would say these are fairly realistic, super conservative figures. So if I knew 500 kanji, I think a super conservative thing would be like, if it shows up on my screen, I can ascertain or interpret 380 of them. I go very conservative most of the time. I aim for 80%, 80-20. Usually, realistically, I perform around this range. And if on a good day, maybe like I'm really on the ball, it can get higher. However, I don't consciously ask myself to do better than within this range, because that is it's diminished return for me. Whenever I do more, it becomes exponentially more time consuming, and I already do things very slowly, quite slowly compared to other people. So I tend to aim for this. So every time when people want numbers and terms, I actually adjust to this range so that I can consistently say, I will definitely hit this mark. However, maybe I'll hit this mark. That's where I'm getting most of my numbers at the moment. And in Chinese, I haven't figured out how many overlaps in characters. In Chinese, I think we're hitting like 700 to 800, which and then you subtract the 10%, so I'm gonna say like 580 to like 720, something like that. That's for Chinese, and Chinese is half the time, right? I started halfway, so it's in half the time, and I don't have to worry about grammar too much. I think in terms of Chinese grammar, I didn't have to go over what would be equivalent to N5 to like give a relative. I didn't have to go over any of these grammar rules. And then like half of N4 if I were to do a equivalence to Chinese, which the only way I would say that would be like both A1 and A2 were okay. When I look through the list, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then B1 is largely where my grammar sits because of casual conversation. Does Chinese have an official Hanzi, I'm not sure if they have an official one. I think the closest thing they would probably have is based on the HSK level, which is on a five number basis. So if you look up HSK and then look up their levels, I think there's probably a list. And I think that is more or less considered the official competence. I didn't go over any of those either yet. So it's convenient that HSK is on 1 through 5 and so is JLPT. However, I have no idea how HSK rating works. The grammar source that I'm using is being normalized to the ABC scale because of English speakers. So B1 is, to me, for all intents and purposes, if you're an immersion baby like myself, someone who casually communicates with their parents and stuff, usually you intuit, in my opinion, on average, when you enter a casual conversation, there is some intuition that leads you to B1, at least, most of the time. And you build on that. So I haven't looked at Chinese grammar in quite some time. I check the grammar every once in a while to see if there's anything new. So I'm slowly looking at B1 concepts, but they're not in Duolingo. There were 1 or 2 B1 concepts in Duolingo. They're like very irregular. Actually, most of the grammar stuff is pretty irregular in Duolingo. You hold on to your prototypic example and then build from there elsewhere. So they don't like lean into they don't make a unit entirely revolving around a grammar point all the time. It's more like 15% of the time. And you will know when you land on a unit that revolves around a very important grammar point. It could be like a tense. Like early on, it would be a tense change or a form, some sort of form change that you learned enough that they have enough prompts to do simple sentences while changing the one form. That's the only instance. In the Chinese course, none of it. There's none of that. In the Japanese course, there is. So 15% of the time, there is a course entirely built around a grammar point. In Chinese, it's not. All your examples are like maybe 1 of, 2 of, and the way I have to remember it is I prototypically remember those grammar points and the sentences involved in them, and I continue to perpetuate those forward to remind myself of the grammar point. The downside of this is you have to rely on yourself to contextually understand enough to swap out words. So if you're not actively swapping out words, it can be very uncomfortable. Because you're sticking to simple sentences, right? So like, for example, I still can't say like if then, although, but we can do this and that if only this happens. I can say that in Chinese. I can't say that in Japanese yet because it's so much longer. They take so much more time before you hit a grammar point. Like I could say like demo, no toki, no, like when I was however old, or like I like this, I did this, then I did this, first I did this. But in Chinese it's already like, but do you like this? If not, would you like this? Like I can say things like that already, but you can only say it in a very specific way for the time being because your vocabulary is still very limited, right? As much as they push forward in terms of sentence complexity, my Chinese vocabulary is actually much smaller than my Japanese vocabulary. So now I have this opposite problem where I have so many words in Japanese, I don't know what to do with them. Like I can't express many of them in a sentence contextually. And in Chinese, I'm like, I need more words. Just give me more words. Like, this is a really neat thing, but I can only say like, oh, do you like the color blue? How about this dress? How about this blue dress? Like, because I only have like dress and pants. Meanwhile, on the Japanese side, like, which katakana word do you want? We have like 16 katakana words for something. You can, like, you have like 100 to 200 vocabulary words about clothing alone. So it's kind of fun. I think it's very different. It's super different right now. It makes it so that whenever I'm learning Japanese, it's a different feel from Chinese. Not intentionally. What I mean is, I'm not intentionally making it feel different. I didn't need it to feel different. I would have been fine if the Chinese course taught exactly the same, like structured exactly the same as Japanese. I would have been fine with that too. One thing it's not though is that all the courses are structured the same. Someone came up to me, like multiple people came up to me and said that weirdly, against all things, they say that all the courses are copy and paste. I'm like, you do know that the very criticism of Duolingo is that all the courses are not treated equal. Right? That's actually a QC or an update or developmental pipeline concern. That's the major criticism, right? And I feel it here for sure between Chinese and Japanese. The nice thing, in my opinion, for me personally, not for anyone else, because Chinese and Japanese course are different, it does tell me a lot of things that I like, dislike, or work or doesn't work for me. So what doesn't work for me right now in Japanese is the step back in sentence complexity, the step back away from like 2 to 3 sentence prompts and answer and response at the expense of learning kanji. So like what's missing here, it's coming back, it's slowly coming back. However, they stepped way back. Like the way the Japanese course is done is holding your hand a lot. Like, oh no, we can't, you know, it would be too discouraging, potentially too discouraging, if we introduced 15 new kanji characters while introducing 15 new vocabulary words while introducing 2 grammar points. And I actually totally agree with that. Now the downside is sometimes some units are like very restricted and some units are not. At the upper limit, I think there was one unit that introduced like 25 new characters and 10 new vocabulary words and like 1 grammar point in which they used on each prompt, and my head was spinning already. Like, and we have to keep in mind that these units, I only spend 3 days on these units, and then I try to memorize as much as I can for another additional 3 days. A week for 25 new characters. Learn how to write it, learn its sound, at least like listening or trying to say it, while at the same time, like, you know, learning the meaning and whatnot. That's absurd. I think that's absolutely absurd. So in my opinion, that's probably largely why they went with the 3 times the length. So if it's a hyper kanji unit, there's less vocabulary, less new vocabulary. Well, they kind of just removed that all together, actually. If you got to this point, the chances of learning 1 or 2 new words in a unit is surprising. And then kanji, the upper limit is about 15 characters, 15 to 20 characters, and then the lower limit is like 2. And how you do get only 2 kanji? They're probably counters. Counters are grammar points, right? In my opinion. So they're either a grammar point, dealing with predicates, and predicates aren't like, they don't add predicates to exercises because I guess in my opinion, their theory is that you use the predicates enough that you won't need to be reminded. So in the kanji section, predicates are completely absent. Like, there's no reinforcement of predicates. So like, if there's a new way to, like, for example, I need to remember for this unit, yobu is not on there. The idea is you'll see yobu so more often because of the simple sentence, rapid fire simple sentences. You'll get used to it, right? That is one of the weaker parts for me personally, because I see it, I read it, that's great, but since it's not in the kanji section, I don't write it really well. As in, like, when I say yobu, I see it, but it takes me a while. So I like seeing it in the kanji section, but they don't do that. So there are a lot of like interesting choices that they had. Not if you're very curious about Duolingo's aptitude. I think they really play it for the long haul for Japanese, like super long. It's like going through a bachelor's degree. It's like going through a bachelor's degree in a language. They structured it so that you're expected to revisit the fundamentals again. So you learn all the vocabulary. You learn so much vocabulary so quickly. In fact, I disagree with most people who say like, oh, the vocabularies, they drip feed you vocabulary. Actually, a lot of people are accurate about they drip feed you kanji because that's the intent. It's intentionally designed all the way up to until your vocabulary reach a critical mass. You, like, the first 100 plus, like the first 1,000 hours that I spent was building a 2,000 plus vocabulary base. And by the time you get there, you only know 100 kanji. Like N5. Not even N5, because they chose very selective kanji that's not complex. As in, they chose kanji that comes up very, very often due to their prompts. Not, oh, here are a representative kanji that you should know. I think by the time you got your first 100 kanji, 40 of them was from N5. Something like that. And then there was like some from N4, right? And then occasionally there's an N2 and one thrown in somewhere. So that's where they go. And I don't think nowadays when people learn Japanese, they'll use Duolingo long enough to even hit the second ramp. So my reasonable response most of the time is, do you like your things to go fast? Do you like to learn everything together at once? Are you a hands-on person? Duolingo is not for you. I can't emphasize this enough. Like, Duolingo is so fundamental. Like, it's so old school. I definitely agree with most of the people, the experts, who say this is a very archaic way of doing things, because it is. It's targeted towards younger people, you know? The interface, the design. When you're learning this way, you learned it as a kid. And I said this a bunch of times to other people who have already moved on from Duolingo and stuff. It makes me feel like a kid again. Like, I really, this is how, in my opinion, when I think about how I learned, that's how I learned English. It's ironic to say that when someone says, oh yeah, you don't learn English and Japanese the same way. Actually, this is, in my opinion, the closest thing, because this is an Americanized approach to learning Japanese. I'm not surprised that immediately I feel like I'm learning English again. only with Japanese. And that's a lot of problems. It comes with a lot of problems, and it's ever present there. Do you sacrifice the comfort of what you have learned before? So if the majority of your users are English speakers, right? And they are more than likely to be most familiar with the starting position of English learning since they haven't learned another language, this would be the most familiar structure approach. And that would make it the most receptive and easily approachable starting place. It would be an easily approachable starting place. Now, my parents, when they're learning English, they learn it the Chinese way. And obviously that doesn't fly very well. So they learn enough, and you hope that they then go on to like matriculate other approaches that are more prone to unique to English, like auditory participation, for example, accent variability, like attention to accent variability and whatnot. However, that didn't happen. My parents kind of be like, oh, you can't just memorize and do the thing. I think Duolingo's Chinese course works really well, like in a Chinese way. Like if you strung it down and you get hammered and look at the list, most of the words and terms have built-in grammar. So yes, it is about memorizing the order and having the words placed in a certain order. If you are very good at that, like a kid, like a kid soaking in sponge, yeah, you pick up, I would say you pick up Chinese reading very quickly. In terms of speaking, obviously, if you don't already have the practice, you're gonna have to practice that regardless. The whole tonality. So it's so fascinating. All of this is incredibly fascinating, at least for myself personally. I'm only talking about myself because the only social experiment I'm presenting here is analyzing and critiquing how I'm engaging with language learning. Like Chinese feels like a different universe of engagement, and Japanese is too. So my time spent is so disproportionately different. Like in Chinese, the moment I land on the Chinese course, I'm like knocking out the Chinese course. Like, yeah, no, I know this grammar, it's fine. It's like, oh yeah, I'll write a sentence, I'll write a paragraph with that. And in Japanese, I'm like, okay. Most of the time, when I get a new character in Japanese, I'm like, what do I know in Chinese that helps me with Japanese? So a lot of time, because Chinese is way ahead in the characters, even simplified characters can be deduced into related Japanese characters. If you're like a problem solving kind of person, like a spatial person, like myself, I like figuring these things out. So I think it's highly encouraging. If you're not using Duolingo, that's perfectly fine. I think taking two languages that may have startling different contrasts in the way they structure how to be taught and whatnot can greatly improve someone's aptitude, maybe even intuitively on how they learn. It will definitely somewhat slow down in a different way. Like what I mean is, obviously you're going to be dividing your attention between two languages. So focusing on one is faster than doing two. However, for me, it's the aptitude of learning. Sometimes when you learn something somewhere else, while it may not be appropriate to lift something, like my parents' example, where they learn English the Chinese way, where they would memorize a very specific sound and relate everything to that very specific sound, then you're going to be inclined to spend pretty much a disproportionate amount of your time memorizing sound relations. And in English, that's not great. It's not fantastic. Doing sound associations often come with use prevalence. So as opposed to like here where we could like pitch accent all day, right? You know, you can go and hit up a native sample and like, oh, there's a smaller range because it's so nice, rigid, disciplined. And Chinese is very similar because of the tonality thing. It's not as flexible. Meanwhile, in English, my parents would have like friends who are Italian immigrants and then Indian immigrants, and they would all try to like say an English word and all of them would sound different. So then, which is it? So do you spend all your time learning every variant of this word, or you go to the official source? The official source won't necessarily help you with understanding your friends, because if you're like an immigrant or a multicultural person, like my parents are, they're usually going to hang out with someone who, quote unquote, is going to sound different. And that I don't think necessarily applies to Chinese. It sort of applies to Chinese a little bit more than Japanese. And that's a crazy thing. Like digression, but I learned to really, really appreciate how tight, like heavily wound Japanese speech is. It's wound pretty tight. Like, the reason I'm saying this is because when I listen to anime and like watch Japanese cinema, I didn't understand Japanese. So it's not like I could even tell if they're trying to say the same thing. Over time though, now it's like, oh yeah, wow, that sounds like that. That sounds like that. So I totally agree with other people who keep emphasizing, oh, if you want to understand native speak, you have to listen to native samples, right? To me, that is where it contrasts with English. It's like, oh, how do I sound like you? Listen to me. It's like, well, if I listen to you, will I sound like a native speaker? It's like, well, you'll sound like me, whoever I am. You're probably not going to sound like the majority, because there really is hard to determine what a majority. American English may be considered like a majority, I suppose, or British English. However, you could end up sounding like anyone, really. And that's a tough pill to swallow, in my opinion, for like my parents, who's coming from Chinese, or someone coming from Japanese. You start thinking like, wait, why are they saying it like that? And then there's this thing where I haven't taken the English course on Duolingo, but whatever it sounds like, I don't have an issue with it. Like there's no possible way that I would say, oh, you should sound like this person in English. You should sound like the person you're talking to, the people you hang out with. So if you have an English speaker, right, it's kind of ironic, because the nice thing, the elegance of Japanese is that you can do enough to sound good enough to be intelligible, and not like pretty well, not nice being like really book smart, like input smart. In English, I don't think that's true. I think that's lesser true. Without experience and output with someone, you're going to just sound like yourself, which you won't get the confidence that you sound like someone else, right? Sometimes it's interesting where Japanese, you want to sound like someone, like you want to sound like a Japanese person. And then when a Japanese person learns English, I would imagine the normal thing is they want to sound like the thing they imagine what English sounds like. What does that sound like? In my opinion, as a native I consider myself a native English speaker. I don't know what that sounds like. When someone says, oh, I want to sound like an American English speaker, I'm like, what does that sound like? Is it me? I would beg to differ, actually. There are a lot of things that deals with my vocabulary and my speech pattern that is not colloquial. Saying colloquial is not colloquial. Having a deep discussion about existential crises happening to Sub-Zero while he's reevaluating his quarter-life crisis dealing with basic electronics. That's not colloquial. What I just said was completely not colloquial. It's unnecessarily complex. You could instead say, oh, Sub-Zero is having a hard time with homework. That's probably it. Or like, Sub-Zero feels bad. That's probably colloquial. So I don't know. I think language learning is profoundly intriguing. Profoundly. Not to say that it is more profound than anything else. I love being incredibly involved in the things I'm doing. And right now I'm language learning. So it's so much fun to talk about. Sorry, I got carried away. Alright, we're gonna get refocused. I don't know if Sub-Zero is resolved his got a coping answer. I can co-pilot. Alright. 1ヶ月に
3回ハンバーガーを食べます。
3回ハンバーガーハンバーガーを食べます。1ヶ月に3回ハンバーガーを食べます。Okay. Alright, I think we're done with personalized practice. So now we're gonna go back to our current unit. I think I had trouble. When did I have trouble with current unit? Okay. 男。女でしょう。
女ですよ。
See what the sentences go back to like between the sentences in personalized practice, like before the reset and this, right? It's largely to practice kanji, so it ends up being like this short, even shorter than short.
墨新聞100
日課3月皆さん OK 皆さんは立派ですね
皆さん
Oh, just 皆さん立派ですね No topic marker
立派皆さん男何人
全部
彼らはみんな男の人です。
彼らはみんなと
彼らはみんな男の人です。
みんなの男です。みんな男の人。男の人です。
です。彼らはみんな男の人です。
男の人。
そちらの方はどなたですか？
そちらの方はどなたですか？こちらの方は皆さんは女の人です。
皆さん女の人です。
男の人が少しいます。
男の人が少し。Wait. What? Oh, 少しいます。Oh my goodness. Oh, that's deceptive. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Oh, otoko no hito.
東京は人がたくさんいます。東京は
ね? Wait. 東京は
人がたくさんいます。
人
がたくさんいます。
彼は男です。Or maybe 男の人. No, that's either. 彼は男性です。
男性です。
It's any of those, really.
じゃあね、みんな。
みんな。I should say that next. Or tonight. I have 2 older sisters. Or there are 2 older sisters. 姉が I guess 姉が2人います。ね？
姉
が
2人
います。
います。
女の人がいます。
女の人がいます。
あの方は彼女のおじいさんです。
おじいさんで。あの方は彼女のおじいさんです。方Off we go. 若い. Oh no. Today is new vocab day for Chinese. Oh no. That means I'm an hour behind. Okay. Are there any manga or anime series that you particularly like? When it comes to I will probably go through recency. So the most recent thing that I left an impression on me. I think and then I have this categorized. I mean, like, I have this listed. So let me go and check. So in terms of anime, I haven't read manga in a long while. If I'm reading something, it's usually some sort of like intellectual book that's written in English for the time being. However, in terms of anime, let's look. The last anime, I went down a trip of like movies that deal with overcoming like difficulties and mental health, and so the last one was Olsama ranking or rankingu, I don't know. So Olsama, that was great. Olsama was great. Before Olsama was the recent season of Demon Slayer. That's okay. Solo leveling, nah. Jujutsu Kaisen second season. It was pretty good. I like Jujutsu Kaisen season 2. I like standalone anime. So, oh no, we're gonna skip that one. And Fierin. Oh wow. Wait. I think I missed one. I think Apothecary's Diary. Kusuriya no Hitorigoto. That's pretty good. The Apothecary's Diary was. That was the most recent. So I kind of scrolled over it. So probably Apothecary's Diary. I sampled something else, but the person that I was talking to, they mentioned it, but I watch things based on people's. Apothecary's Diary. Someone's interested in Chinese culture, and they happen to be a pharmacist, or they are pursuing in pharmacology, so they were watching that series, and I liked it. It was quite excellent. I would say last year was Severin, or this year was Severin. Last year to this year, Severin would be the one, because it illustrates. It tells a message that is incredibly underrepresented. Yeah, Frien is what most people say. Frien. Yeah. Frien. Yeah. Wakai. Have you seen Frien yet? I look forward to the next season. At least that's what all the notes are pointing. You've seen it? Yeah, that is like, that is something. It's something that it communicates a message that is unprecedented in the industry right now. One of your favorites? Yeah, that if I needed to summarize what I say all the time, like the elements of the things I've done in the last 6 years of streaming, that show illustrates most of it. So yeah, I really hope so too. Like budgets, writing, fatigue. I hope all of that is managed for the person, because anime is tough. I think the anime industry is incredibly rough. Like, and so it can go any direction. Like those types of shows, like those specific niche shows, there are more declines on the reissue than the other. I hope the mangaka doesn't rush their story. Exactly. Yeah, because it's still, it's a one-to-one for the show and the mangaka. Like they're working together on it. So you, for every one of those, there's like 6 that have a season 2 that falls off the train tracks. Yeah, it's a really big hit for both concerns and not. Like big hits tend to be quite concerning, in my opinion, for like niche. The track record for niche breakout big hits tend to be more misses than hits. So your comment when you say you really hope the quality keeps up, I really do hope so too. But for the sake of being like healthy to the creator and the studios involved, because largely in this hyper consuming place that we live in now, the second time around have far more misses than hits. And I'm not suggesting just anime. I'm talking about like video games, movies, any form of content creation nowadays. It's so tough due to the hyper consumption. So yeah, I'm a person who can wait. Like here's my particular anime. There's one anime that, and manga, that is close to my heart because of my namesake, MAKU. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but a lot of people come to the conclusion that MAKU is Makunochi. There's really only one character in anime and manga that has the surname Makunochi, and that's Hajime no Ippo. So I'm very patient because I wait for the day they renew Hajime no Ippo. There are like 6 to 7 year gaps between the renewal of Hajime no Ippo. There are actually 4 seasons that dates back to 1990s. And also it's one of the longest running manga. So the manga has been running ever since. It's still running. So kudos to the healthy. It's one of the longest running manga. Top 5 longest running manga. That's kind of a historical thing though. I wouldn't say it's for everyone. Yeah, it's not a topical recommendation. Recency plays in a lot. Frien is a very topical one right now. Currently though, right now I want to watch Look Back. I talked about this a little bit with someone in Discord. We talk about anime quite a bit. I'm a sucker for coming of age stories that deal with adversity. Yeah, it's in theaters right now. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to watching it after it exits theater, because I don't hang out. I don't go to social. Theater movie going is not a social activity that I have participated into. Fujimoto's one shots are all bangers. I agree. I agree. Yes. Wait. Is that the one? Hold up. Hey, hang on. That might not be the one that I'm thinking. Yes. Mm-hmm. I know of it. I haven't consumed it though. I know of it. So when you say do I know, I do know it. I do know it. I don't read a lot, unfortunately. Sorry about that. If you have something that you really are into, I would totally read that. That's probably what I could say. I'm largely dictated by the passion and the interest of others. So when I watch Apothecary's Diary, like all of it in like 3 days, it's largely due to someone's unquestionable passion for the show. Right? I even watched Indie got lost in Japan somewhere. I suppose. There was someone else I know that visited Japan and they never came back. So I have no idea where he gone. But he watched Rent a Girlfriend, and I watched that too. Just because it's relevant to whatever they're interested. I don't usually go out of my way to try to like delve into something unless someone else has it. I think the thing I'm really interested in watching right now as well is Uzumaki. Like Netflix's Uzumaki. They fund a great studio to capture Junji Ito's work, Uzumaki. And from a visual standpoint, because I like art, from a visual standpoint, the studio is nailing it. I think the studio is very brave to try to capture the stylization of Junji Ito's work. So that's kind of, I don't know if you're into that, like psychological horror kind of thing. I'm a very topical, hipstery kind of guy. I dabble in trendy things when it comes to the arts. Not so much memes. I'm out of date on memes. We're not going to talk about memes. Wakai.
若い
彼らを呼びます。
彼らよを 彼らを呼びます。
呼びます。
呼びました。
呼びまし
And it's also worth mentioning that my time is divided incredibly. So the reason for that is I dabble in a lot of things. In a way, I don't try to get invested into something. And it leaves room for me to be invested in someone else. So lots of times I drop things and then I assume a new thing. That Inktober thing, the thing that I'm doing with like artwork, that was on a whim. It was on a whim 3 years ago. Someone I used to talk to, now I don't, because they pretty much maybe have a very healthy lifestyle or something. They dropped off the face of the universe, like in the particular niche. But I keep up the stuff because I don't need the person anymore. Like, yeah. And language learning was a spawn of Like a Dragon, the video game series Like a Dragon. Really. Streaming was because of Hearthstone. Like the time that I finally said, hey, I'm gonna stream something, it was Hearthstone. Reasons are all over the place. I don't really need a strong reason. I need people. People are the reason. It's very, very boring when, in my opinion, it's very, very boring to self-discover when you spend so much time self-discovering early in life. Now it's fun to self-discover when interacting with other people and trying to get to know them. At least that's my opinion. You know, I don't need to tell myself what angers me anymore, or how to control my anger, how to take care of myself nowadays. I'm more interested on how can I learn and while interacting with others. Lots of fun. Like, there's a hot chance I might take up photography soon, because one of my best friends is really into photography. Like, he had a sudden passion for photography. Might start dabbling in photography. Are you an adult?
大人
大人ですか?
ですか
Are you an adult? Sorry.
Wakai.
Wakai. And recently, I've been getting into deck builders again. Like, I have a guilty pleasure for deck builders, but it was such a strong coincidence that I had back-to-back solicitations for deck builders. I hadn't played a deck builder in so long, like in the relative scheme of things, and then suddenly, like, I got an opportunity to talk to 2 developers of 2 different games. That was amazing. However, I wasn't gonna drop everything that I do to pursue that, because I don't like thinking or weighing all my expectations on, like, oh yeah, if this happens and this happens, I should lean in heavy more and capitalize on it. It's like, nah, it's not. I do love deck builders. Deck builders are amazing.
皆さん
Minasan. I would love, you know what? Like, if I had someone who knew how to code games and are looking for a concept or something, man, hit me up with a Japanese learning deck builder. Oh yeah. I used to love these little, like, games. They're called English vocab games, like typing games. Oh man, English typing game, where you're like expanding your English vocabulary while typing, and then it has like an RPG or like some other hybrid thing with it, or like a even like a on rail shooter kind of program. There was a puzzle game that used like typing typing English vocabulary and stuff. Man, learn Japanese deck builder, hot dog. That'd be pretty sweet. I could probably come up with a concept and the balancing for it. Maybe.
有名
Yume. Let's see. Yume.
結婚
Kekkon.
呼び
Yomimashita. I'm waiting on some Japanese edutainment game. It's almost time for one of the games to come out. Hopefully the developer didn't hit a snag or anything. So we're gonna be playing other Japanese learning games. Duolingo is like as schooly as possible of a gamification. These Japanese learning games are a different take. They're meant for like long sessions and whatnot. What game is that? Is a game called So to Speak. That's slated for 2024. However, the dev disappeared for a while now, and it has disappeared for like greater than 3 months in terms of updates. But it's slated for 2020. I'm also part of the Wagotabi beta, and they recently went from a soft launch to a full launch, but it's mobile only for the time being, for like people who aren't in the beta. The beta is a PC, is the Steam version, but the Steam version is not going to be released until 2025, and this is projected based on wishlist and interest. So the developers are not interested in releasing a game until it reaches a specific threshold of requests. And Wagotabi is a zero to a competent type of design. And what they're doing is they're breaking it up and exposing, collaborating with Japanese prefecture, Japan's prefectures to introduce Japanese culture while introducing dialogue and whatnot and colloquialisms in Japanese. And they are following to some extent the JLPT kind of things to cover certain things. And right now, the state in where like it's a rolling game, so until there's enough interest, so there's that. This game is ongoing. I've been keeping track of its update. Eventually, I'll be returning to this once they're due to the full launch. They are anticipating in adding a content update, like a major content update soon. So we'll be revisiting. The first 3 days I've already recorded, so Wagotabi is one of them. So to Speak is a translational model. So they use a translate model. It's a different approach. Wagotabi is using a phase model, where it starts with necessary English, and it phases it all out into an immersion approach. However, it takes a lot of time to expand the content because it's a rolling game. And So to Speak, it takes a different approach. So we'll see. There's one other game, but I think the dev has largely disappeared. There's a typing one. There's a typing game called order matters typing game called Kanji Kitchen. Unfortunately, the developer hasn't been heard from for like a year now, so probably not hold your breath on that one. Yeah. Those are my side things. Like, regardless of whether I become fluent or not in Japanese and like use Wanikani and Satori Reader and go to Japan kind of thing, I want at most, in my opinion, to integrate my love for video games and the concepts and theories about video game design in order to make education fun, right? Sideline that brain rot and input compromise between learning and what, in my opinion, that's what Duolingo signifies to me. However, yes, I do understand it's still a business. This argument about business, it's like most of the things you do is business. Learning Japanese the fastest way is still business. So I tend to ask this. What Duolingo tries to do used to be my childhood. How did I learn how to type Mavis Beacon? Mavis Beacon was a typing game. That's how I learned how to type. Like traditionally on the like a QWERTY keyboard. So I owe Mavis Beacon to go from, 20 words per minute to 115 words. Right. That's what happens when you give a person like me, a 14-year-old me, a video game that deals with that. Math games a lot. Geo guessing, or wait, what is it called? Geo something. Like geo, it's something. It's not like the current geo guessing, but the idea is I learned most of my flags back in the day, most of my countries, all the capitals around the world, and their geographical shape and landmarks because of a video game. So I really do believe that it transcends generational requirements. It's not normalized now though. Like if people hate Duolingo, it's clearly not normalized. The idea that you can do both. You can do both. The closest thing to a game is a puzzle game, and they're niche at best. Logical system games. There are logical system games that act more like programming logic games. Plenty of those. And then the most softest way of education, deck builders. If you understand interactions using text, functionality, order of operations, if you understand how to intuit and or understand how to break down deck builders from other games, like deconstruct an action game into a deck builder. Those are elements of education, right? Logic and critical thinking and problem solving. These things are not trendy, right? It's to the point where you had your recent God of War game, God of War 2, had in unnecessary. They actually went too far in assisting puzzles. Having the NPC like aid in puzzles. That's how far it has come. And then, FromSoft's design is pushing back on the hand holding. And that's kind of where Duolingo is, right? So it's weird that there's a double standard for Duolingo. Meanwhile, I'm going to go on a limb here. The people who criticize Duolingo for handholding are probably the same people who likes their video games being explicit and explains everything, and they don't think about anything for themselves, in my opinion. I think the same group overlaps. It's a double standard. Not that they're unachieving. They're definitely achievers. These are definitely achievers. The thing is, there's something about a game and education that do not interact. So, in fact, if Duolingo presented themselves as a game first, there would be less backlash for optics. But to me, I think it's relatively brave that they're doing that. And I really, in whatever, maybe I don't know the CEO very well, but whatever the presentations, like the TED Talk and stuff, it's very articulate. I commend someone who would go against this dogma that you can't learn something while also having fun. Crazy. If you're not seriously learning, If you're having fun, then you're not seriously learning. It's something that is so alien to me. I thought learning was fun as young as I can. You could call it maybe bullying is what causes it. I don't know, but I like going to school, and learning because it makes me forget about bullying and other things. Learning is like almost a safe haven from the reality of the human condition. Even to this day, right now, I like using Duolingo because I'm learning something. And what happens? You get bullied for learning using Duolingo. It's the same. Like, to me, it's back to high school again. It's back to high school. Now the internet is your school. Right? The internet is your school. So you attract people who disagrees with you and they attack you for it. But I'm not a 14-year-old, I'm not like a 16-year-old fresh out, like getting ready to graduate high school that didn't have experience with it. So I can only imagine what it's like. And I don't want that to be the normal. Like when someone says like, oh yeah, hating on someone for making something really serious about something that they don't think is serious, that's really disappointing. Someone who says they know how to spend their time wisely to learn something, instead decide to spend their time being toxic to another person that they disagree with. I guess that's where you save the time, right? It's pretty disappointing. Not that I'm not expecting it. I think it's going to happen. Right? It's gonna happen eventually.
先生
先生を呼んで No. Yeah. Actually, yeah. 呼んで
をよって
Oh, ください。
ください
Please. I got this. Please.
呼びました。結婚、立派、有名。
Out of all the things I think about when it comes to like bullying and misunderstandings and learning things, I think one thing that a lot of people would, in my opinion, would want to hear more often, like haven't heard in a long while, is that it's going to be okay. Like if you go up to someone and they're like, oh no, I screwed up, like what if I did everything wrong, like I don't know where to start. It's going to be okay. Start with one step. Think of, like sit down with someone, work with someone, sit down, troubleshoot, find out what the next step is, the next step and the next step. In nowadays, I don't think there is enough people to say, you're a smart noggin. What you do now is going to be very different from what you're going to do later when you become increasingly more competent when you start doing something. It's going to be okay. Your life isn't going to end or end up in some sort of dramatic dead end because of the hyper aggressive amount of uncertainty and cautionary tales and opinion projecting, right? Start learning Japanese if you're interested in learning Japanese. Please start and be rest assured, right, by someone who is encouraging to say, when you learn something, ask yourself, now what can you do? Can you do something different? Can you continue to do the thing you're doing? Is it still working? Ask those questions. As opposed to, in my opinion, and I think this is where I disagree with a lot of unfortunate interpretations of professional learning methods or study methods, is that you trust the process entirely without practicing any form of critical thinking and self-evaluation. It's great if you already have those things and you trust the process, right? Like, you could trust an expert and say, oh, input, 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 and it'll work, right? If, in my opinion, and it's a big if you're someone who already knows how to self-evaluate and engage in output and have all those other experiences, I think that works. That whole input, input, input works when you're a child, when you're someone who has a very predictable behavioral pattern. I disagree strongly by how generalizing some of the things are when you reduce something into like efficiency or order or something, trying to find, it's one of those Occam razor issues with like scientific method and like scholarly reviews and scholarly rejection of dogmatic principles, right? So it's going to be okay. If you like Japanese, start learning Japanese. Pick something that's good enough to start, and then, in my opinion, encourage the person to do some form of extracurricular learning and critical thinking. That involves an output that isn't necessarily the skill that you're training when you're hyper-focused on language learning. Language learning teaches you so many things about critical thinking and problem solving that it's still sometimes shock me, but largely disappointing, that people can learn so much about a language and, in my opinion, completely overlook any learning experience about the things they did to get there. Like, I asked them, like, so what are the approaches that you went about doing this? Because I need to know about this before you provide me advice. Can you tell me why these things work? And they're like, they just work because according to X, Y, and Z expert. It's like, well, you got to explain it to me. I could trust that expert if that expert explains it to me, how it works. And you explain it to me. Because earnestly, I'm talking to the person. So I can explain the pros and cons and the ups and downs of Duolingo design pretty well, because I have to evaluate if it's working and whatnot and stuff as I'm going. It to me, an investment in understanding how I'm learning language learning is invaluable for any future things I do with language learning, as opposed to focusing and trusting whatever tools you have and then feel betrayed because the tools somehow didn't meet up to your expectations, which I think that describes 9 out of 10 people who are dissatisfied with pretty much any product that they engage in. Nothing's good enough based on their best. Like, oh, this Souls game is not as good as the Souls game. Oh, this tool is not as good as the tool. Rough. When it comes to language learning, you prefer to listen to personal experience over anything else. I enjoy that too. It engages such a extra level of connection. Like right now, I like listening to I think that's his last name. I like listening to authors that write in Japanese. And this guy has a channel, and I've been watching this guy talk about culture. And he largely talks in like 70% English, and then whenever he throws in Japanese, he throws in Japanese. But he's a Japanese, he's a multilingual person. So he's an author, and he talks about culture all the time, like Japanese culture. So I really like it. I remember trying to follow the common advice online. None of it worked for you. That's understandable. That's I honestly think in the long run, when you're following advice, if you can internalize it yourself, like not verbatim for whatever the advice is, if you can pick apart the things and pick out the things, then that ends up being the thing that works, as opposed to something that is prescribed to you. I really enjoy this. I've learned quite a lot from this guy. He described Twilight recently. It was a clip on Twilight, like the expression Twilight, the many expressions for Twilight. The only one that I got was Yugata. Yugata was the one that he reminded me of. However, he was explaining how when it gets dark. Oh, what was the? I only heard it once, but it was good enough for me to explain it. And if I can explain it, you can probably tell me what the term is. It's a term that is da. It might be dare. It's a combination of dare, like who's there or who are you. The origins is who are you, because when twilight happens, light goes down and it gets to the point where you can't recognize the person. So you say who are you? It's a combination of characters that was originally derived on asking who are you. I don't know what that is anymore, but I love the story. So I remember the story, and then until I encountered the expression again in Japanese, or watch his feed again. Let me see if I can like unless you've seen some of his YouTube shorts. I really like him. His English also sounds very Japanese. What I mean is his English is very American. Like, what I mean, the pronunciation is very American, but the way he speaks English is very Japanese. So I get this fondness about, like, man, the way he speaks, like, he doesn't sound like me, for example. Like when he explains things, like, this is how it is, like, how well you have this, and like that's really funny. I think it's, I'll find it again. Wait, hold. It's it's tasogare. Tasogare. It was explaining tasogare's etymology. Anyways, more digression.
若い
Alright. Great questions. Fun questions. He puts out like one short every week, so I think that's a very small time investment. You like watch whatever. The other guy is busy with his orphanage, so I haven't really seen, he hasn't posted much because he was taking care of his second orphanage. I like his little skits too. I would love to hear his story about his orphanage in Japanese. Like, he would maybe talk about the orphanage and stuff in Japanese. That would be kind of cool. Taka? He just the channel has Taka in it. Like Taka Nihongo Dojo, something like that. Those are my like go-tos right now, because those guys are like brimming with personality. And the other guy, Taka speaks with heavier Japanese accent, but his English is wonderful too. He has that little like countryside version of Japanese English. Let's see.
女の子
oh no, not
女の子女の子
Oh wait, yeah, girls. 女
女の子
の子たち。女の子たちは有名です。
たちは
Oh,
この
oh no.
です
Wait, 有名。
です
I forgot 有名。
有名です
I just noticed your username has PhD in it. What was my PhD? Have you asked this before? I feel like someone. I thought we might have already discussed this. My PhD is in molecular biology. It's a biology PhD. I specialized in like retrovirology, I suppose, like RNA viruses. I study viruses. In its relationship to like oncogenic properties, I suppose. So things that cause cancer. They're more like from a genetic standpoint. So the molecular events that occur between like the retroviral life cycle and the interaction of the retroviral life cycle with the host genetic material, I suppose, like the genetic consequences of the retroviral life cycle. And one of the genetic consequences is mutations, and mutations tend to result reductively into things like transforming a cell, right? And that transformation often leads to cancerous cells. Cancerous cells being any cell that gain a function or lifted a mutational restriction on cellular growth, and that's what you would qualify as a cancerous cell or a transformed cell.
彼は結婚していますか？
彼は結婚していますか？結婚していますか？結婚していますか？彼は。Oh. Interesting. Yeah, right. 私は男です。So I'm just kidding.
どなた
Oh.
どなた
Oh, 男性. They went with 男性。
男性です。
Okay, sure.
男の人が大勢います。
男の人が、大勢います。Oh, yes, right. Yeah, that my defense was 7 years ago, I think. It's been a while now, and I haven't been in science since then. So science has been more of a tangential hobby. So many of the things I use, like approach to learning and analyzing and problem solving and whatnot, largely came from my PhD. I think that's in my opinion, that's the quickest way to summarize what a PhD is. I don't necessarily think the semantics with the discipline, if you're out or something, the thing that transcends, the skills that transcends most disciplines, or like the semantics, like the knowledge, is the ability to learn, analyze, and problem solve. Like critically think and problem solve. So picking up whatever task or skills, that is what I think a PhD stands for. So most of the time, the things I say are not novel to me. They are things that I like to believe are acquired in school. That's not necessarily true. Due to the nature of declining education systems in general, like around the world, education systems. I talked about that earlier today with a friend. It's an ongoing dialogue. I wanted to be an educator. a higher education educator. However, yeah, around the world, most of the educational systems and educational indexes are on the decline. I don't necessarily think that any particular education system, except for those who already have poor education systems, are remarkably improving or increasing. I think the large majority of them are either stagnating or declining very, very slowly around the world. And if the internet is any reflection, it's concordant with how people perceive education system. Like there's less and less incentive for higher education. Higher education is on a slump. And as someone personally very fond, but I'm telling you, it wasn't like sunshine and rainbows. However, the value of higher education is largely seen as something optional now, like creative initiative, self-motivation, a prominence for innovation, intellectual curiosity and discovery. That's secondary to being pragmatic, right? Being pragmatic as in survival, money, iterative design, hyper objectivity, like the internet. Why go to education and higher education to innovate on things that we have plenty of working things? So you iterate on things. Natural curiosity and incentive for that is diminishing around the world. Like money doesn't go into further basic intellectual discoveries or innovations or preventive measures and like things that are hard to feasibly, grasp because it requires higher education. Most money now is dogmatically applied to application, pragmatism. So while there's maybe a country out there perhaps spending a proportion of their funding towards like discovery, most might argue there's not much to discover left and lots more problems hands-on, right? Like things like innovating on different solutions to climate change, for example, not as incentively lucrative or incentivizing. And in terms of the creative process, arts, language, music, even then, motivations are predicated on algorithm-based iteration. So even generative AI can mirror iterative design, as opposed to the days of here's money, come up with a new idea on faith alone. So not even large money, like big capital, is interested in innovating on things. They are interested in iterating on things. Slow, steady progress, or stagnating progress, sometimes even declining progress. So that's kind of the state, the direction anyways. Not that it might not change in the future. It can change. Like for example, I made a very real example. For example, COVID. During the period, those 2 years of COVID, I can't even begin to emphasize how much research was funneled into the understanding of RNA viruses almost instantaneously to try to combat COVID, right? Without the challenge to necessitate intellectual investigation, human condition sets in, and that's complacency. And I'm talking about like a real thing, right? I'm talking about like something that can be incredibly detrimental. The video games, language learning, music production, 、 music production, cinema. These are things that maybe they're luxuries per se. And if you look around and compare how creative liberties are done and where funding is going, its funding is safe, pragmatic, in the box, or maybe a box with one extra feature. Risk taking is at an all-time low, right? Risk taking is at an all-time low. And what I mean by risk taking, I don't mean life and death situations. I'm talking about bolstering higher learning or higher like intellectual things, right? And I'm not saying that this is going to solve things. I'm saying this is on a downtrend because it's safer. It's safer to use what works, right? What already works. It's safer to do all of those things because the basic human condition is that if there isn't a problem, we don't want to risk making a new problem, nor think about preparing or working towards betterment. It's more like maintaining status quo. Maintain status quo. So whenever when I see like a divisive approach to something, right? It's very fun to engage in it. Does Duolingo work? I don't know. It's kind of like old hat, but at the same time, it's new hat. It's more than someone who says, I'm going to make an Anki clone. And therefore, because Anki is popular, this can be popular. There's a reason why large market shares go to very specific products that are hard to substitute. And then they stick with it. In my opinion, it's tough to encourage like someone lucratively, pragmatically to take more risks because the internet or the way information transfers, that risk is so scary. Like, what if Duolingo changes the Japanese course entirely? It's gonna be met with negative response. What if it changed it exactly to the way that a native speaker wants? It's still gonna be met, in my opinion, largely gonna be met with negative response. Largely because it's a change, not necessarily for better or for worse. I think objectivity ironically goes out the door when a delta is too big. The delta in what is normal changes. So there's less intellectual challenge. What's a less intellectual challenge? Japanese is a hard language. That's an intellectual challenge. Anything through an echo chamber requires a really strong intellectual challenge in order to remove it, or in order to like change its perspective. Like, I still have people who think drinking milk, for example. Here's one that's interesting. Drinking milk as an adult is necessary. I'll let you think about that one. And they would cite something like, oh, drinking milk because it's an excellent source of calcium. Like, yeah, there are a lot of things that are an excellent source of calcium, even more than milk. And you're an adult. Oh, here's one. Lactose intolerant is on the rise. Like, in terms of genetics, lactose intolerant was the norm. Lactose intolerance is the norm. It's actually the other way around. And lactose ingestion deals with like a biological need or biological selection in the beginning. But usually, if you think you're getting gassy as you're growing older, is largely because if you think biologically, adults have more inclined, a lot more sources of calcium than milk. So things like that, like echo chamber. There's not a lot to challenge these things anymore. You still have content creators for sure that think about, wait a minute, is this true? No one asked, but is this true? Or like, let's rethink this. I don't know if this is true. We have more information now. Less of this. I think 80% or more of content, okay, that might be exaggeration, let's say 70%, is reposting or repackaging existing knowledge. So I like it. I enjoy listening to different perspectives on the same topic. It does not change the idea that there are less people interested in discovering new things and challenging new things and integrating new information compared to people who are iterating on the same information, on the same sources. So, for example, old debunked knowledge is often made new again in a new generation. Largely, in my opinion, because the new generation no longer seeks to be educated. Like it's a waste of time. It's not efficient. Why do I need to know math when I'm gonna spend my life away from math? That's a fair point. I actually have no counter arguments to these. So when I say decline of higher education or education in general, I'm not saying that it's not warranted or justified or rationalized. I think the people who don't want to go into higher education have a very reasonable argument and choose to do so, right? It's a state. If that's going to change, I don't know. I mean, one day there might be another viral outbreak, right? And I suppose the human race will find out how many critical thinkers are left to counteract specific challenges. I think, I'm not saying the human race is doomed or anything. I think it's good to be aware of these things. In a time of consumption, time of comforts, and time of non-existing problems or non-existing apparent problems, like it's difficult to communicate climate change, for example. It's very difficult to, because it's in the future. It's difficult to understand these consequences. So inherently, if you're a pragmatic person, you don't worry about it until it becomes a problem or a big enough problem. And that's kind of the whole idea of higher education. I love science because of that. I wanted to study the viral life cycle because it's a curiosity. And will that information be useful? Well, the irony, the biggest, well, not irony, or kind of irony and coincidence, is that what I did when I graduated was less than a year from COVID. And COVID happens to be an RNA virus. The departments that I had a chance to hear from, like interact with, were the people in the United States that were addressing the COVID thing. So the good news one of the good news is lots of people have done lots of research already. So that's the good news, right? That's what higher education is. Curiosity bred lots of investigations into COVID already. They already existed. Now, if this keeps declining, if higher education keeps declining, what is to say that one day you get challenged with something and no one was none the wiser? And then you have like, you know, your usual science fiction post-apocalyptic situation where the humans are discovering things at the same time. And then you have a whole generation of people who don't want to do any critical thinking. Instead, you know, use your tools like generative AI or something. Or like, here's a symptom that I feel is a little disappointing. When I ask someone to explain something, they would spend 1 minute making a generalized comment and then tell me to Google it. If I had $1 for every time someone told me they are competent, or they didn't say that, but they say that they already learned all this stuff, and then they tell me to go Google it, my only inclination is they didn't. At least not well enough to explain it. That to me is a decline in higher education, or it's a symptom of decline in higher education, and not in the sense of them learning more things. The idea of educating other people are not interested in that anymore. Even in a language learning situation, right? Even in a language learning situation, it happened already. Like, oh, I learned a lot of Japanese. I can help you. Here's my advice. I'm like, that doesn't sound like advice. That just sounds like you're making a comment at me. Can you explain how that works? Explain to me how you use this thing so that advice actually means something. You know, like a personal story, for example. You know, provide context. Advice requires context and qualifiers. If you go around saying, I'm a polyglot, that's not context. That, to me, says you said something, you claim something, and have no demonstration of your experience. Higher education, I think, goes without saying that when you go around and you say those things in a situation of higher education, you will get, in my opinion, 9 out of 10 times, you will get slapped in the face and say, can you explain this? You just said this, qualify it. In my opinion, the vast majority of intellectuals will say, please explain it to me. Like, oh, it's easy. You just do this and do just that. Like, that doesn't sound like an explainer. Can you go into more detail, please? Like, what is your methodology? What are your outcomes? How do you monitor and troubleshoot your outcomes? Can you tell me some of the pitfalls of your approach? Because the strength of your understanding of your tools that you use and your approach also requires that you understand all the pitfalls and the trade-offs and compromises of that tool. Going around saying only the good things about your tool is confirmation bias. It's something that is taught, in my opinion, in higher education because you have to defend your position. You have to know what it doesn't do just as much as that it does do. And for my case in engaging in language learning, I have met a couple PhD people, like 2, maybe 3 in my 6 years of streaming. And those individuals are in almost unnoticeably like the vast majority of conversation I've had with seemingly intellectual people who are well studied, well like competent, learned a lot of things, and yet I have this very noticeable, uncharacteristic pattern that I notice regarding their abilities to educate someone else. And that comes back to language learning. So, yes, there is such thing as the native speaker, or native, I don't know if this is in it, native fallacy. And this used to be, in my opinion, a low, I'm gonna say, we'll give it like 30%. I don't know what the data is. Like a 30% chance that this takes place. Native fallacy. Nowadays, I'm not sure how high that chance is. So here's my take. When someone asks me, you're a native speaker, you're a native English speaker, should I learn English from you? And my thought to myself is, well, I guess I've been around education enough. I suppose I have taught something in my life which cannot be that is not the majority of people. Like teaching in an academic environment. However, even then, I would say no. An English teacher, if you can find one that you resonate with, is far more appropriate. Now, what I can do is be a friend and offer personal stories, but I am not qualified to learn from that. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. With the decline of education, like higher education in general, and teachers not wanting to teach anymore, like anyone who's interested in teaching, that's a little reductive, sorry. A significant pool of people who are interested in teaching no longer teach anymore. So when you're going around asking for advice, you're on your own. The advice you get are varied. There's no long, and it's very common now to normalize going up to a stranger and say, oh, you look like you know what you're doing. Can you help me out? As opposed to like, you know what? I know a guy who does this really well, and it's their job, kind of, and they do other things. I can't say that anymore. Like no longer. You can't say that anymore. You have to vet people because there's no the standardization is not there. It's a long digression, but I love talking about education and teaching. I think it's very, very helpful that to adapt to this, now it's up to the person. The person is responsible for understanding how to integrate advice and getting your information and stuff. Because in my humble opinion, education systems don't do that anymore as much. Like people who don't like education no longer have that ability, like that critical thinking and learning lesson. So now you have, and I'm not talking about just the United States, I'm talking about everywhere. You go online, how do you synthesize, integrate, and use the information that's online? Well, if you are younger than 18 years old, I would first make sure that is sound first. Like, are you able to synthesize, extract information online? Or are you going online, reading information that's presented to you as correct, and that's the end of the story, right? It's to the point where generative AI can hallucinate and the world ends for a person all of a sudden. Like, that is a great testament. Not doomsaying though. I think there's a way. There's definitely a way. And it starts with encouraging people and being encouraging and not being like painting a dystopian future. I don't want to be any more negative than I have to be. Like that sounded like it was going towards that direction. I actually think there's gonna be a workaround. Like there's steady increase of people who love to challenge and be intellectually interesting, talk about things more than, you know, clickbait, farming views, cloud chasing, that kind of thing. I think so. There's room enough for those. Now, I like to think that in the future, my experience will change. I think language learning in public has taught me what the current landscape of learning is like in public. This is not, in my opinion, what it's like at a school or on a campus, like on a campus at a university. The cliche phrase of there's no such thing as a stupid question. I think I often always interpreted I interpreted this statement more like there's like a such thing as stupid. I'm more like there's a way of asking that makes this true. A way of asking. Like the meta cut here is you can ask a question that is basic but very very important. There is potentially a stupid way of asking a question. Like, how do I get good, bro? That's probably what I mean. Like that doesn't it doesn't help the person. Like I can't answer that question. Like get good at what? How do you want to get good? Like how are you doing it now? That kind of thing. There's ways of asking the same question that isn't construed as stupid or uninformative, which is like 90% of my interactions. Okay. All right. I'm done. Sorry. And those people could be very brilliant people. It's not an ad hominem argument. The question and the way you ask the question can be stupid. The person themselves is not stupid. They are normalizing things that they find are acceptable because that's their environment, in my opinion. So the person is intelligent, is filled with all the potential of being smart, intelligent, educated. The acts can be stupid and uninformed and incompetent. So not in like I want to dispel that. If you ask a stupid question, it's not a reflection on the fact that you yourself are stupid. There's many ways to explain how a question like that comes about outside of assuming the person is stupid. I think that's worth inculcating and making certain. I think people need to hear that. I think lots of people need to hear that from day to day. Ask your questions while other people don't treat you like you're stupid because you asked a question that you didn't have information about in the first place, right? That's not how other people treat each other right now. Like, it's definitely not how people interact and exchange information these days. They either echo chamber a fact and talk at the person like they're incompetent, or make a joke and do you digress from the situation, and then the other way is to deflate the significance of the comment. And when someone is joking and you want to joke with them and take it seriously, like add more, the person couldn't be bothered to invest in their own comment. Those are like my top four interactions online at the moment. If it doesn't belong to any of those four, go and talk to that person, because they might be actually intellectually intrigued and interesting. If you didn't hit the I'm making a joke, don't take it too seriously, are you dumb? That's a dumb question. Obviously it's this. The essay that has no consideration to talking to the person they're trying to answer, and then just Google or like an ad hominem argument. You probably got the fifth one, which is kind of bold. Like, go talk to that person. Probably be a very involved interaction. And rare. There are a lot of boys. Sorry, it's always learning Japanese. Sorry.
男の子
男の子が大勢います。大勢います。
います。
その女の人は有名です。
その女人は有名です。その女人。
タクシーを呼びましょう。
タクシーを呼び。
あの男の人はまだ若いです。
男。あの男の人はまだ若いです。behind. Ish. 離婚。
離婚。
その鳥は死にません。
その鳥は死にません。なくなります。なくなります。
なくなります。
なくなります。
なくなりません。
なくなります。
男。皆さん。離婚。
死にました。なくなりません。
なくなります。離婚。若い。なくなりません。呼びました。
死にました。死にました。
死にました。
去年彼女は離婚しました。ね？
彼女は去年彼女は去年離婚しました。
去年赤ちゃんが生まれました。
赤ちゃんが生まれました。去年。7月 7月、デブ、
7月、
sorry。7月の私。離婚しました。
しました。
に ?Okay.
に、
その方は亡くなりました。
その方は亡くなりました。その方は赤ちゃんを去年赤ちゃんが生まれました。去年赤ちゃんが生まれました。
生まれました。
彼は400年前に死にました。
彼は400年前に死にました。その犬は100年前に死にました。100年に死にました。
その、
前に is fine。前に死にました。その犬はその犬は100年前に死にました。
その女の人は1000年前に亡くなりました。
どんな人その女人は1000年前に亡くなりました。この女人です。女人はokay. Okay. Alright. Focus.
去年彼女と別れました。去年
彼女と別れました。
彼女と
別れました。
別れました。
大人
赤ちゃん
ん
ボール
男の人
病院結婚離婚
呼びました。亡くなりません。若い、
死にました。
お金、レモン、男の子、西、
女の子。大学の友達はまだみんな独身です。大学の友達
はみんな独身です。Yes. No, みんな、
まだ
wait.
まだ大学の友達はまだみんな独身です。
まだみんな独身です。
独身です。
Yes.
大学の友達はまだみんな独身です。
結婚。
銀行。フォーク。レモン。
来た。
あの女の人たちは有名です。
あの女の子の。
あの女の人たちは有名です。の人は有です。あの女の人たちは有名です。
あの女の人たち。
週末、彼氏とデートしました。
週末、彼氏とデートしました。彼は100年前に年前に死にました。彼は400年前に死にました。
さあ、皆さん、立ちましょう。
さあ、皆さん、立ちましょう。Everyone, everybody? Jeez. There are a lot of men. Are there now? 男の人が大勢です。大勢
男の
男の人
が大勢います。
この女の子たちは有名です。
この女の子たちは有名です。范经理部屋に方の部屋に人が一人今部屋に人が一人います。That's actually kind of rough.
部屋に人
が一人います。
あの女の人たちは有名です。
Right.
あの女の人はたち。
女の人たち
は
有名です。
有名です。
Alright. Well, better late than never. We've fallen behind this. That's okay. We know all the stuff. We'll back retroactively one day. One day we'll go back to we're what 3 units behind on the kanji. That's okay. We'll use it as a review. Alright, that's a wrap for Japanese today. Take home message. I said a lot. Right. It is what it is. I think, or actually, that's kind of a lazy outro, right? I think the take home message today is find some time, try to make it fun and engaging to ask yourself, you know, what does the advice mean to you? And like, you know, contextualize advice, take in information, contextualize it. It is very exhausting and takes up more time. But in my opinion, much like language learning, context breeds a lot of interesting things. It can lead to different interactions and different thoughts. So hey, the next time you come across a language learning hack, you know, a life hack or something, yeah, give it a go. Integrate, synthesize. Try something, and if it doesn't work, deconstruct it. What did work? What didn't work? The end doesn't necessarily determine that there's no value in the method. Most of my methods are Frankenstein of something, right? It was tweaked, it was adapted, it was integrated. Heck, there's quite a lot of advice out there that are explained really well and modular. Understanding the modularity of advice, how things interact with each other, deck building 101. So you have a bunch of mechanics, and those mechanics can be deconstructed, and then those mechanics themselves can interact with other mechanics. It allows you the freedom of reordering the mechanics, building your own deck, and building your own deck creates your method, right? Logical systems, critical thinking, problem solving, methodology reviews, that kind of thing. Deck building, puzzle games. You're putting things together, right? Go out there, have fun. And for now, that's the end of our Japanese lesson. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. And until next time, for all you Japanese language learners out there, mata ne. Ja ne, minasan, right? And I'm gonna get up, stretch, and use the bathroom really quickly before I'm back for vocabulary day for Chinese. Ooh, midnight oil after midnight oil. I'll be back. Thanks.